When most people think of Brazil, the same images come to mind. The towering silhouette of Christ the Redeemer overlooking Rio de Janeiro. Endless stretches of golden beaches filled with sunbathers and surfers. The vibrant explosion of Carnival, where music and color seem to transform entire cities into living celebrations. The rhythm of Samba, the passion of football, and the energy of one of the world's most recognizable cultures. These are the images that have defined Brazil for generations. But they tell only a fraction of the story. Because beyond Rio's famous skyline lies a country so vast that it contains entire worlds hidden within its borders. A nation larger than the continental United States, where dense rainforests stretch beyond the horizon, rivers flow for thousands of miles through landscapes few outsiders will ever witness, and cultures have survived for centuries in remarkable isolation. Deep within the Amazon, indigenous communities continue traditions that long predate European exploration, preserving languages and knowledge found nowhere else on Earth. Far from the crowded beaches, islands emerge from winding rivers and the Atlantic Ocean, each with its own history, wildlife, and way of life. Across the country, ancient festivals, regional music, and local customs reveal a Brazil that most visitors never experience, a mosaic of cultures shaped by indigenous peoples, African heritage, European settlers, and generations of life across one of the most geographically diverse nations on the planet. Nature, too, tells a story few expect. Vast wetlands filled with jaguars and giant otters. Towering sandstone plateaus hiding crystal-clear caves and underground rivers. Endless white sand dunes that transform into shimmering blue lagoons after seasonal rains. National parks where some of the oldest rock art in the Americas offers a glimpse into humanity's distant past. Even today, scientists continue to discover new species in Brazil's forests, while archaeologists uncover evidence that challenges long-held assumptions about the civilizations that once flourished there. Every year, the country reveals something previously unknown, reminding us that even in the 21st century, parts of our world remain wonderfully mysterious. Brazil is not simply a destination. It is a continent-sized tapestry of ecosystems, histories, and cultures that cannot be understood through a handful of famous landmarks. To truly know Brazil, you must leave behind the postcards and venture into the places where the country's deepest stories are still waiting to be discovered. This is the Brazil you've probably never seen. The Amazon, the world's greatest rainforest. To understand Brazil, you have to begin with the Amazon. Not because it is the country's most famous natural landmark, but because it shapes nearly everything around it. Covering millions of square kilometers across 9 South American countries, the Amazon rainforest reaches its greatest extent in Brazil, where nearly 60% of the entire forest is found. It is so vast that flying over it can feel like crossing an endless green ocean, with dense tree canopies stretching beyond the horizon in every direction. Yet the Amazon is far more than a forest. It is a living network of rivers, wetlands, floodplains, and ecosystems unlike anywhere else on Earth. At its heart flows the Amazon River, the largest river by volume in the world. Together with thousands of tributaries, it forms a watery highway stretching for tens of thousands of kilometers. In many parts of the region, there are no roads at all. Boats serve as school buses, ambulances, grocery stores, and family transportation, connecting communities that have depended on these waterways for generations. Life flourishes here on an almost unimaginable scale. Scientists estimate that the Amazon is home to around 10% of all known species on Earth. A single hectare of rainforest can contain more tree species than exist in some entire countries. Brilliant macaws soar above the canopy while toucans glide between towering branches. Jaguars move almost silently through dense vegetation, remaining unseen even in places where they are surprisingly common. Pink river dolphins navigate dark waters with remarkable intelligence, while giant otters hunt together in family groups, communicating with whistles and chirps that echo across quiet rivers. The forest itself is constantly changing. During the rainy season, enormous areas become flooded, creating forests where fish swim between tree trunks and aquatic life spreads deep into the submerged landscape. Species have evolved extraordinary adaptations to survive these seasonal transformations, making the Amazon one of the most complex ecosystems ever studied. But many of its greatest discoveries remain hidden. Every year, scientists identify new species of frogs, insects, fish, orchids, and even mammals that were previously unknown to science. Some are found in remote valleys, while others have lived unnoticed in regions that researchers are only beginning to explore. Each discovery is a reminder that the Amazon still holds countless secrets, despite centuries of exploration. The rainforest is also one of humanity's greatest natural pharmacies. For thousands of years, indigenous peoples have developed an extraordinary understanding of medicinal plants, learning which leaves reduce fever, which bark eases pain, and which roots possess healing properties. Modern medicine has benefited from this traditional knowledge, and researchers continue studying Amazonian plants in the hope of discovering new treatments for diseases that affect millions of people around the world. Yet perhaps the Amazon's greatest importance lies in something less visible. Its forests store vast amounts of carbon, helping regulate Earth's climate. The countless trees release enormous quantities of water vapor into the atmosphere through transpiration, influencing rainfall patterns across much of South America. This natural cycle supports agriculture, replenishes rivers, and helps sustain ecosystems far beyond the rainforest itself. For countless generations, indigenous communities have understood that the forest is not simply a collection of resources but a living home where people, animals, rivers, and trees exist in delicate balance. Today, scientists increasingly recognize how much modern conservation can learn from this relationship between people and nature. Standing beneath the towering canopy, surrounded by sounds that never truly fall silent, it becomes clear why the Amazon has inspired explorers, researchers, and storytellers for centuries. It is not just the world's largest rainforest. It is one of the last places on Earth where the unknown still outnumbers the known, reminding us that some of our planet's greatest wonders remain hidden beneath a canopy of green. The isolated tribes. Beyond the winding rivers and towering forests of the Amazon lies one of the most extraordinary realities of the modern world. There are still places where history has followed a different path. Deep within Brazil's remote rainforests live some of the last uncontacted and voluntarily isolated indigenous communities on Earth. While satellites orbit overhead and cities grow ever larger, these groups continue to live much as their ancestors did centuries ago, relying on the forest for food, shelter, medicine, and survival. For many people, the idea seems almost impossible. How can communities remain isolated in the 21st century? The answer lies in both geography and history. The Amazon is immense, with vast stretches of dense rainforest that remain extremely difficult to reach. Thick vegetation, winding rivers, and limited infrastructure have helped preserve regions where outside contact is still rare. But geography alone does not explain their isolation. Many of these communities are believed to have chosen separation after generations of violence brought by colonization, disease, forced labor, and the exploitation of the Amazon. Throughout history, contact with outsiders often resulted in devastating epidemics, conflicts, and the loss of ancestral lands. For some groups, avoiding contact became the safest way to preserve their people, culture, and independence. Today, Brazil is home to more records of uncontacted indigenous groups than any other country in the world. While researchers know that these communities exist through aerial observations, footprints, abandoned camps, or occasional sightings, very little is known about their languages, beliefs, or daily lives. And that uncertainty is intentional. Brazil's official policy is not to seek contact unless it becomes absolutely necessary to protect lives. Instead, protected indigenous territories are established to reduce the risk of outside intrusion, allowing these communities to determine their own future on their own terms. This approach reflects a simple but important principle. Isolation is not a sign of being lost in time. It is a choice. These communities are not untouched relics of history, but living societies that have made a conscious decision to remain apart from the modern world. Protecting that choice, however, has become increasingly difficult. Illegal logging, unauthorized mining, land grabbing, and deforestation continue to threaten some of the most remote parts of the Amazon. Roads cut deeper into previously inaccessible forests, bringing increased pressure on territories that have long served as refuges for isolated peoples. Even unintended encounters can have tragic consequences, as diseases that cause only mild illness elsewhere can spread rapidly among populations with little or no immunity. At the same time, many indigenous communities that do maintain contact with the outside world are playing a leading role in protecting the rainforest. Combining generations of traditional ecological knowledge with modern conservation efforts, they help monitor vast areas of forest, report illegal activities, and preserve ecosystems that benefit the entire planet. Their understanding of the Amazon is built not on maps or satellite imagery, but on centuries of careful observation. They know when rivers change course, where animals migrate, which plants heal, and how the rhythms of the forest shift with the seasons. Knowledge like this cannot be learned in a laboratory alone, it is passed from one generation to the next through lived experience. For those who remain isolated, the greatest act of respect is often the simplest one, allowing them to remain exactly as they have chosen to be. In a world where almost every corner of the globe has been mapped, photographed, and connected, these hidden communities remind us that true exploration is not always about reaching every place. Sometimes, it is about recognizing that some places, and some ways of life, are not ours to enter. Brazil's forgotten islands. When people picture Brazil's coastline, they often imagine the beaches of Rio de Janeiro or the bustling shores of São Paulo. Yet scattered across the Atlantic Ocean and hidden within the Amazon's vast river system are islands that tell a very different story, places where nature has flourished, traditions have endured, and time seems to move at its own pace. One of the most remarkable is Marajo Island, located where the mighty Amazon River meets the Atlantic Ocean. Covering an area larger than countries such as Switzerland, it is considered the world's largest fluvial maritime island. Here, the landscape transforms with the seasons. During the rainy months, enormous grasslands become flooded, and water buffalo, introduced centuries ago and now deeply woven into local life, wander through wetlands alongside herons, capybaras, and caimans. Long before European explorers arrived, sophisticated indigenous societies built large ceremonial mounds across the island, leaving behind intricate pottery that continues to reshape archaeologists' understanding of pre-Columbian Amazonian civilizations. Far from the mainland, nearly 220 miles off Brazil's northeastern coast, lies Fernando de Noronha, an archipelago that feels almost untouched by time. Strict environmental protections and limits on visitor numbers have helped preserve one of the Atlantic's healthiest marine ecosystems. Crystal-clear waters surround volcanic cliffs where spinner dolphins gather in remarkable numbers, while green sea turtles, reef sharks, and countless tropical fish thrive among coral formations. For divers and marine biologists alike, the islands offer a rare glimpse into an ocean environment that remains largely intact. Hidden farther south is Ilha do Cardoso, a place where Atlantic rainforest stretches almost to the shoreline. There are no sprawling resorts or crowded highways here. Instead, small fishing communities continue traditions that have been passed down for generations. Mangrove forests shelter colorful birds, rivers wind quietly toward the sea, and endangered species such as the red-tailed Amazon parrot find refuge within protected habitats. The island demonstrates how human communities and fragile ecosystems can coexist when development remains carefully balanced with conservation. Not all of Brazil's extraordinary islands rise from the ocean. Deep inside the Amazon lies the Anavilhanas archipelago, one of the largest freshwater archipelagos on Earth. During the dry season, hundreds of forested islands emerge from the dark waters of the Rio Negro. When seasonal floods arrive, the landscape changes once again as rising rivers weave through submerged forests, creating a maze that seems almost impossible to navigate. Pink river dolphins surface beside quiet channels, black caimans rest along hidden banks, and countless bird species fill the canopy with an endless chorus of sound. Every change in water level creates a new version of the landscape, making Anavilhanas one of the Amazon's most dynamic natural wonders. Closer to Brazil's southeastern coast lies Ilha Grande, an island with an unexpectedly dramatic past. Once home to pirate hideouts, quarantine stations, and later one of Brazil's most infamous prisons, the island has undergone an extraordinary transformation. After the prison closed in the 1990s, much of Ilha Grande was protected, allowing its lush Atlantic rainforest to reclaim the land. Today, hiking trails lead through dense jungle to secluded waterfalls and beaches where no roads interrupt the scenery. The island has become a symbol of nature's ability to recover when given the chance. Although each of these islands is unique, they share something remarkable. They reveal a side of Brazil that exists far beyond the country's famous postcards. Here, rivers become highways, forests reach the water's edge, and communities have adapted to landscapes unlike anywhere else on Earth. These islands are not merely destinations on a map, they are living reminders that Brazil's greatest treasures are often found in the places most travelers never think to visit. And as the journey continues inland once more, another hidden side of Brazil begins to emerge, not in its landscapes, but in the traditions, festivals, and cultures that have shaped this vast nation for centuries. Traditions most visitors never experience. Brazil is often celebrated for Carnival, a festival that has become one of the country's most recognizable symbols. Yet in a nation that stretches across nearly half of South America, no single celebration can capture its cultural richness. Beyond the famous parades lies a mosaic of traditions shaped by indigenous peoples, African heritage, European influences, and generations of communities adapting to vastly different landscapes. In the historic towns of central Brazil, one of the most cherished celebrations is the Festa do Divino Espírito Santo, or Festival of the Holy Spirit. Dating back centuries, the festival combines Catholic devotion with local customs that have evolved over time. Streets fill with processions, music, shared meals, and colorful ceremonies, as entire communities come together to celebrate generosity, faith, and hospitality. While each town adds its own unique traditions, the spirit of the festival remains the same, strengthening the bonds between neighbors through celebration and shared history. Travel north to the state of Maranhão, and another extraordinary tradition comes to life. Known as Bumba Meu Boi, this vibrant folk performance blends storytelling, dance, music, theater, and elaborate costumes into a spectacle unlike any other. At the center of the story is a legendary ox whose death and miraculous return symbolize renewal and hope. Rooted in indigenous, African, and European cultural traditions, the performance has evolved over generations into one of Brazil's most distinctive forms of popular culture. Every community tells the story differently, making each performance a reflection of local identity. Farther into the Amazon region, traditions are often inseparable from the rhythms of the forest itself. Many indigenous communities continue ceremonies that honor seasonal changes, ancestral knowledge, and the natural world. While the details of these practices differ greatly among Brazil's hundreds of indigenous peoples, and many remain private, they reflect a worldview in which rivers, forests, animals, and human life are deeply interconnected. These traditions are not relics of the past but living expressions of cultures that continue to evolve while preserving ancient knowledge passed from one generation to the next. In the northern city of Belém, millions of pilgrims gather each year for the Círio de Nazaré, one of the largest religious processions in the world. Families travel from across Brazil to honor Our Lady of Nazareth, filling the streets with prayers, songs, and acts of devotion. For many participants, the event is more than a religious celebration, it is a powerful expression of community, tradition, and shared identity that has united generations for over 2 centuries. Daily life across Brazil also reveals traditions that rarely appear in travel brochures. Along the Amazon's waterways, river communities build homes on stilts to adapt to seasonal flooding. Wooden boats remain the primary connection between villages, carrying everything from fresh produce to schoolchildren. Meals often feature locally caught fish, cassava flour, tropical fruits, and recipes refined over countless generations. Life follows the rhythm of the rivers, where changing water levels determine travel, fishing, and even the location of entire communities. Travel thousands of kilometers south, and Brazil transforms once again. In the grasslands of the southern states, the gauchos, Brazil's skilled horsemen and cattle herders, maintain traditions that have shaped the region for centuries. Their lives revolve around horseback riding, livestock, and the vast open plains known as the Pampas. Gatherings often include traditional music, folk dances, and the sharing of chimarrão, a hot herbal drink prepared from yerba mate and passed from person to person as a symbol of friendship and trust. What makes Brazil truly remarkable is not simply the number of its traditions, but the diversity they represent. The country is home to hundreds of indigenous groups, descendants of Africans brought across the Atlantic, communities shaped by Portuguese colonization, and later waves of immigrants from Italy, Germany, Japan, the Middle East, and many other parts of the world. Over centuries, these influences blended with local customs to create regional identities that can feel as distinct as separate nations. To travel across Brazil is not to experience one culture, but many. Each region speaks with its own voice, celebrates in its own way, and preserves stories that cannot be found in museums alone. Together, these living traditions reveal a country whose greatest cultural treasures are often hidden far from its most famous landmarks. And just as Brazil's people have adapted to an astonishing variety of landscapes, those landscapes themselves conceal some of the most breathtaking natural wonders on Earth. Hidden natural wonders. Brazil's natural beauty is often represented by a handful of world-famous landmarks. The thunderous waters of Iguazu Falls, the iconic beaches of Rio de Janeiro, and the lush slopes surrounding Sugarloaf Mountain have become symbols recognized across the globe. But beyond these celebrated destinations lies another Brazil, a land of extraordinary landscapes so unusual that they seem to belong to different continents altogether. In the northeastern state of Maranhão, an endless sea of white sand stretches toward the horizon. At first glance, Lençóis Maranhenses National Park appears to be a desert. Towering dunes rise and fall like frozen ocean waves, sculpted by powerful coastal winds. Yet this is no ordinary desert. Every rainy season, fresh water collects between the dunes, forming thousands of crystal-clear lagoons that shimmer in shades of turquoise and emerald beneath the tropical sun. For several months each year, visitors can swim in pools that seem almost impossible, surrounded by nothing but brilliant white sand. Few places on Earth undergo such a dramatic transformation, making Lençóis Maranhenses one of Brazil's most extraordinary natural phenomena. Farther inland, hidden within the heart of central Brazil, lies Jalapão, a vast region of golden grasslands, sandstone cliffs, and untouched savannas. Roads are scarce, and many areas remain accessible only by four-wheel drive, helping preserve a landscape that feels remarkably wild. Here, rivers emerge from underground springs so pure that they create natural pools where visitors float effortlessly due to the water's unique pressure from rising groundwater. Waterfalls plunge into secluded canyons, while brilliant orange sunsets illuminate landscapes that remain largely unknown outside Brazil. To the east, another geological wonder rises from the highlands of Bahia. Chapada Diamantina National Park is a world of towering plateaus, deep valleys, hidden caves, and waterfalls that tumble hundreds of feet into lush forests below. During the 19th century, thousands of prospectors searched these mountains for diamonds, giving the region its name. Today, the miners are gone, but the landscape remains. Beneath the surface, underground rivers have carved vast limestone caverns filled with transparent blue pools where sunlight penetrates through narrow openings, creating an almost otherworldly glow. While rainforests often dominate discussions about Brazilian wildlife, the Pantanal offers an entirely different experience. Covering one of the largest tropical wetlands on Earth, it transforms with the seasons as floodwaters spread across immense plains. Unlike the dense Amazon rainforest, the Pantanal's open landscapes make wildlife easier to observe. Jaguars patrol riverbanks in greater numbers than almost anywhere else on the planet. Giant anteaters wander across grasslands, families of giant otters hunt through quiet waterways, and thousands of caimans bask beneath the tropical sun. More than 650 species of birds fill the skies, turning the wetlands into one of the world's greatest destinations for wildlife observation. Brazil also preserves a window into humanity's distant past. In the rugged landscapes of northeastern Brazil lies Serra da Capivara National Park, home to one of the largest collections of prehistoric rock art in the Americas. Thousands of paintings decorate sandstone cliffs and sheltered caves, depicting scenes of hunting, ceremonies, dancing, and everyday life. Some archaeologists believe that certain archaeological sites in the region may represent evidence of human occupation dating back tens of thousands of years, contributing to ongoing scientific debates about when the first people arrived in the Americas. Whether or not every interpretation is accepted, there is no question that Serra da Capivara preserves an extraordinary record of ancient human creativity and cultural history. These remarkable places share something beyond their beauty. Many remain far less visited than Brazil's famous tourist destinations, not because they lack wonder, but because they lie beyond the routes most travelers follow. Reaching them often requires patience, long journeys, and a willingness to venture into landscapes where nature still sets the pace. Together, they reveal a Brazil defined not by a single ecosystem, but by astonishing diversity. From flooded wetlands to towering mountains, from prehistoric rock shelters to shimmering lagoons hidden among endless dunes, the country's greatest treasures are often those that remain quietly waiting beyond the spotlight. Yet the future of many of these extraordinary places, and of the Amazon itself, depends on choices being made today, as Brazil seeks to balance conservation, scientific discovery, and sustainable development in one of the planet's most important natural landscapes. The future of the Amazon. For centuries, the Amazon has been a place that seemed too vast to change. Its forests stretched endlessly beyond the horizon, its rivers carried life across thousands of miles, and its incredible biodiversity appeared almost limitless. To early explorers, the rainforest felt eternal, a world that would always remain as it had been. Today, we know that even the largest ecosystems are not indestructible. The Amazon continues to face serious challenges from deforestation, illegal logging, mining, wildfires, and the growing pressures of a changing climate. Every section of forest that disappears affects more than the trees themselves. It changes habitats, alters river systems, and disrupts the delicate balance that countless species have depended upon for thousands of years. Yet this is not simply a story of loss. Across Brazil, thousands of scientists, conservationists, park rangers, local communities, and indigenous leaders are working to protect one of Earth's most extraordinary environments. Researchers establish long-term monitoring stations deep within the rainforest, studying everything from insect populations to tree growth and rainfall patterns. Their work helps scientists better understand how the Amazon functions and how it responds to environmental change. Every year, new discoveries reveal just how much remains unknown. New species are identified, ancient archaeological sites are uncovered beneath the forest canopy, and innovative technologies provide fresh insights into one of the world's most complex ecosystems. Indigenous communities have become some of the rainforest's strongest guardians. For generations, they have managed forests through knowledge passed down over centuries, understanding seasonal cycles, wildlife behavior, and sustainable ways of living that modern science increasingly recognizes as invaluable. Across many protected territories, indigenous patrols work alongside government agencies and conservation organizations to monitor illegal activities and safeguard lands that support both cultural heritage and extraordinary biodiversity. Conservation also extends beyond protected areas. Across Brazil, restoration projects are helping reconnect fragmented forests by planting native tree species and rebuilding wildlife corridors. These efforts allow animals to move more freely between habitats while gradually restoring ecosystems that had previously been damaged. Sustainable development has become another important part of the conversation. Many local communities depend on the forest for their livelihoods, and conservation is often most successful when it supports the people who call the Amazon home. Harvesting products such as Brazil nuts, acai berries, natural rubber, and other renewable forest resources can provide income while keeping the forest standing. These industries demonstrate that economic opportunity and environmental protection do not always have to be opposing goals. Ecotourism has also created new opportunities. Visitors from around the world travel to experience the Amazon's remarkable wildlife, explore its winding rivers, and learn from local guides whose families have lived in the region for generations. Responsible tourism encourages the preservation of natural landscapes while providing economic benefits for communities that protect them. The Amazon's importance reaches far beyond Brazil. The rainforest stores vast amounts of carbon, influences rainfall across much of South America, and supports millions of people whose lives depend directly on its rivers and forests. Scientists continue to study how changes within the Amazon may affect weather patterns, agriculture, biodiversity, and global climate systems. Although many questions remain, there is broad scientific agreement that maintaining a healthy Amazon is important not only for Brazil but for the wider world. Perhaps the rainforest's greatest lesson is one of humility. Even after centuries of exploration, no one fully understands all of its secrets. Every expedition has the potential to discover a species never before described. Every archaeological survey may uncover evidence of civilizations once hidden beneath the canopy. Every season reminds us that nature still possesses an extraordinary ability to surprise us. The future of the Amazon will not be determined by a single discovery, policy, or generation. It will be shaped by the countless choices made by governments, researchers, indigenous communities, local residents, and people around the world who recognize that some places are simply too extraordinary to lose. And perhaps nowhere is that truth more evident than in Brazil itself, a country whose greatest treasures are often the ones the world has yet to fully understand. When the world speaks about Brazil, the conversation usually begins, and ends, with the same familiar images. Rio de Janeiro's breathtaking skyline. The rhythm of samba echoing through crowded streets. Carnival's dazzling costumes. Legendary football stadiums. Endless stretches of sunlit coastline. There is nothing wrong with these images. They are part of Brazil's identity, and they deserve their place among the country's greatest cultural symbols. But they are only the opening chapter of a far larger story. Because beyond the famous landmarks lies a nation unlike any other on Earth. A country where the world's largest rainforest still guards mysteries that science has yet to explain. Where rivers serve as highways through landscapes so vast they can only truly be understood from the sky. Where indigenous cultures continue to preserve knowledge refined over thousands of years, reminding us that history is not something confined to museums, it is something still being lived. It is a land where islands hide ancient civilizations, where white sand dunes transform into brilliant blue lagoons, where jaguars roam immense wetlands, and where prehistoric paintings silently record moments from humanity's distant past. Perhaps what makes Brazil so extraordinary is not any single destination. It is the sheer diversity of the country itself. Within one nation exist tropical rainforests, sprawling savannas, towering mountains, flooded wetlands, dense Atlantic forests, remote islands, and some of the richest biodiversity ever known. Each region has developed its own traditions, music, cuisine, festivals, and way of life, creating a cultural mosaic as remarkable as the landscapes themselves. And despite centuries of exploration, Brazil continues to surprise us. Scientists discover new species every year. Archaeologists uncover evidence that reshapes our understanding of ancient civilizations. Communities preserve traditions that have endured for generations, quietly reminding the world that progress does not require abandoning the past. In an age when satellites can photograph nearly every corner of the planet and information travels across the globe in seconds, Brazil remains one of the few places that still inspires genuine discovery. Not because it is unknown, but because it is impossible to fully understand through a handful of famous postcards or tourist attractions. Its greatest treasures are often hidden far from the places where most visitors stop. They are found in conversations with river communities who know every bend of the Amazon by memory. In the songs sung during centuries-old festivals. In forests where every tree shelters countless forms of life. In landscapes that seem almost too extraordinary to be real, yet have existed for millions of years. To explore Brazil is not simply to travel across a country. It is to journey through worlds that exist side by side, each revealing another layer of one of the most fascinating nations on Earth. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson Brazil has to offer. The world is far larger, richer, and more complex than the images we see on postcards or social media. There are still places that challenge our assumptions, cultures that broaden our understanding, and landscapes that remind us how extraordinary our planet truly is. Perhaps the greatest journeys aren't the ones that take us farther from home, but the ones that reveal how little we truly know about the world. And somewhere beyond the beaches, beyond the cities, and beyond the familiar landmarks, the hidden Brazil is still waiting to be discovered.